Our next guest is an entrepreneur, business consultant, and social media star with more than 2.5 million followers on TikTok alone. Please welcome Max Klymenko to the South by Southwest studio. Hello.
Hi, great to be here. I didn't expect this star.
You are a star.
I'll take
I mean, you have that many followers, you're pretty much a star. That's how it works today.
Okay, fine.
I'll get your autograph later.
I'm cool with that.
Well, I was going to start with some other questions about social media, but I think, we should probably talk about Ukraine a little bit because this is where you're from. We wanted to start off by sending love back home.
Thank you.
To everyone that you care about and to the whole country, as well as, can we get some of your thoughts on what's going on right now?
Okay, what question to start off with?
I mean, what are you hearing from your friends and family that are inside Ukraine?
I'm not going to say where they are, just in case, because I've been pretty active on social and
Please don't.
Cyber hackers, Russia-backed bots aren't sleeping, so I'm just going to... But my grandpa is in a bomb shelter in northern Ukraine. My grandma is in a bomb shelter in southern Ukraine. Today is also International Women's Day, and usually, she would always get a lot of flowers for Women's Day. Now it's impossible to deliver them, so there is that. Look, what happened is very simple. 8 years ago, the war started. 13 days ago, the war became full-scale war. Russia has invaded a sovereign country, Ukraine. We haven't ever invaded anyone. And we were just building, creating, a lot of people, and a lot of people who own restaurants, agencies, I'm really deep in the kind of Ukrainian entrepreneurship, and I've been looking to do more also. And it's just it's crazy. There are bombs falling on civilian buildings. There are kids, I think more than 20 kids have been killed, newborns and stuff. It's ridiculous. Something you read in history books and you never think is going to happen to you. And till the end, I didn't think it was going to happen, and now it's kind of there. And
you've got such an incredibly large platform with a lot of followers. Is your truth making it back to Russia, do you think? Have you gotten any feedback?
Yeah, so we're doing a few things. Now it's a little bit difficult because some platforms have exited Russia. Some platforms were banned by Russia or suspended or limited in their reach. Before, that was part of our strategy. So once the full-scale war broke out, I diverted all of my agency resources to work on Ukraine. And I've started working with the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to figure out our messaging for, firstly, Western populations, for people to go sign petitions, contact their politicians, eject Russia from SWIFT, provide more support to Ukraine, military, humanitarian, and so on. And that has been working pretty well. I think the West hasn't been united like this for a long time, and Switzerland for the first time in 500 years.
Right?
Yeah.
You got Switzerland to not be neutral?
So
Are you kidding? That's the whole world.
Important. But I think to Russians, look, there is a friend of mine, Misha Katsurin. He has a project that is called Dad Believe Me. So he called his dad, who lives in Russia, and he said, Dad, there is a war in Ukraine. And he says, what war? He's like, Russian troops are bombing Ukrainian kindergartens, hospitals, and his father says, I don't believe it.
He doesn't believe
his
his son.
Look, your grandson is in danger, and my wife is here, and we're so scared, and we had to flee our home because it's completely ruined. And he's just I'm sure it's the American and the Ukrainian propaganda that is telling you this. And so it's people don't believe their own families. So it's hard to do something. We are doing a bunch. We are recording some videos in Russian. We are spreading some videos through social media accounts that we have in our network. Now it seems that Russia is going to be completely cut off from everything.
Do you think that's going to have a negative effect on getting truth to them if everything gets cut off from social media on?
I don't know. I think we had two strategies. Either, when it comes to, first, the Ukrainian forces are doing really well, given how outnumbered we are. And actually, Russia has been losing a lot of soldiers. It seems like Putin doesn't care about soldiers' lives. He's not even picking up the bodies. We have more than 11,000 off in less than 2 weeks of Russian soldiers. So it's like we can get through to them through, let's say, television, through social media, get to their hearts and minds. A little bit hopeless in that direction. Not that they're all bad people in Russia. It's just that they have been living in a country that is not free and hasn't been free for 30 years. And I can't imagine what it's like. Maybe I would have been brainwashed too if I was there. But you know, now it just seems so obvious what's happening, but they still don't believe it. You know. Another way is to influence them through we call it through the stomach. So it's like when a Russian person opens the fridge and sees that there is no food there, then he looks at, let's say, his wife and 2 kids and understands that it's time to go protest. It's like that's what people do. This government it's literally killing them. And for hundreds of years, Russia will be known as the country that started, you know, borderline genocide in Ukraine and killed. Like, how would you live with all of this stuff, having that passport? I don't even understand.
Possibly World War III. I mean, the first 2 were
kind of bad.
They were started over even less, and now, boom.
Yeah,
Here we
I mean,
go.
now there are nukes, so
Yeah.
the situation is, you know, Russian economy is actually the size of Texas.
Yeah.
It's a small player. It's 2% of global GDP. It's a small player that doesn't really do anything aside from oil and gas, but they happen to have a lot of nuclear arsenal. So it's like in this situation, you know, their army even is not that strong, but it's just, yeah, nukes have changed a lot of things.
So what can your audience do? I know that everyone wants to support Ukraine and help here, and since you have this platform, how are you telling people what they can do?
Yeah, so every week we have a few kind of priorities, and we just check with the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, like what's needed. Not that it's some kind of government propaganda. I just kind of check, like, you know, some talking points, for example, have become, you know, irrelevant. Like there were some financial sanctions that after Western economies sanctioned the central bank of Russia and froze the assets, like they became not important. So I don't want to talk about that. A few days ago, we had a fire at the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. If that would have exploded, which was very close to, that would be 10 times worse than Chernobyl, and you'd have to evacuate the whole Europe. So I just check to make sure that, like, my stuff is up to date. Usually, like what we used to ask in the beginning is to sign petitions. Okay, I get it. Like blah 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 petitions don't work in Western countries. Actually, leaders sometimes it takes a while, but they do listen to their electorate because they're good leaders sometimes, but mostly because they want to get reelected. They want to be good, right? So that makes sense. And if the Western populations really pressure their politicians, it would work. So petitions. Another one is also underrated: email to your local and national representatives. I've included actually drafts for emails to senators and like Congress people here in the US, so that people from the US could kind of access it, because most of my audience, actually, not most, 30% is in the US. And I think it's worked. So ejecting Russia from SWIFT payment system, that has worked. More humanitarian aid to Ukraine, that has worked to an extent. Now our main kind of thing that we are hoping for is for NATO to close the sky. That is a tricky one. Or provide us with more airplanes, fighter jets. I don't know. So we keep pushing. It seems like not much is moving, but who knows? To be honest, I thought, given how in the past 8 years the US and Europe have been pretty passive, that's the best word that I could find, in implementing sanctions after Russia has attacked Ukraine 8 years ago and occupied Crimea in the east. So honestly, like even when, you know, there were bombs thrown on buildings, I thought that there was no way that they would freeze central bank assets. Like that kills the economy. Like it's a lethal shot. But they did. So it's like now we think they're not going to close the sky, but looking at what's happening, like, are you actually going to allow it? For now, we are fighting well, and we might win this ourselves, but we definitely do need help. And you definitely don't want another genocide on the continent after World War II.
Well, I appreciate you bringing us up to date and giving us all your thoughts and feelings on this. I do want to talk about shift back to social media a bit, because you started your TikTok videos after seeing your little sister do so. Can you tell me about that? So I guess she was your inspiration?
Yeah, she's not so little anymore. She's 15, and she would right now she would say that she's not little. Yeah, so I used to have a podcast. It was like 4 years ago. They had like 8 listeners, and like 3 of them was my grandma listening from different accounts. So it's like no one really was paying attention to what I was doing. And then my sister was on this app called TikTok. I think at the time it was Musical.ly. No, I think it was TikTok already. And then I was like, what if I get my podcast there? She's like, no, it's too boring and you're too old. And like, no, this is...
You're old and you're boring, big bro.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna record some videos then. And then, yeah, and then I've been posting almost every day since that for now 3 years, more than 3 years. And now I've found kind of my niche, which is talking about business, psychology, marketing, my life, kind of my, my audience has seen me through, my journey from university to working at Accenture to starting my own business. So like, yeah, I feel like we are on this kind of together, and I've seen their journeys too.
So where did you start with your videos?
I made a video that was a promo to my podcast. It was very boring. It was the most boring thing. And also the podcast was at the time a 52-minute book review where there is like no cuts, no music, like no it's just me and this massive mic. It's the worst looking video on YouTube.
Hey, we all find our voice. It takes a minute. So
yeah.
Now look where you are. I mean, did you ever think you could make a whole career off of this?
I don't know. I actually still haven't made I probably can, make a career out of social media alone, but I'm kind of scared to do it. I feel like then when it becomes your primary source of income, certain things become important, like views, engagement. There are people, I've been contacted by a PR agency to start dating a person who has followers. I don't even know that person. They were like, well, it would be good. And I know people who do date for those reasons to get views.
They still do that?
Sometimes they fall in love.
I thought that was old Hollywood that they did those setups.
No,
That's
it's
still
crazy.
happening?
I mean, now it's, yeah.
What if they were really cute?
I mean, I have a girlfriend, so.
So she'd probably be mad at that. Yeah, maybe not. So you're here at South by Southwest to talk about misinformation on social media. How would you personally combat misinformation? Do you have any suggestions for the rest of us?
Yeah, so number one, there are 2 things, 2 quick things. It's almost like a TikTok. Here are 2 quick things to battle misinformation online. Number one, there is a campaign that we worked on together with the UN called Pause. And the idea is super simple. It's just like when you are about to share something online, just pause. You don't even have to think. Just pause and look at that post and just, does it feel off? Because usually there is, when it's misinformation, especially harmful misinformation, and the higher, usually it feels off, and the higher I think the harm, the higher the burden of you, and the longer time you should pause for. If it's, eat, I don't know, eat...
Tide Pods.
For example, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, like 30 raw eggs to like cure coronavirus. Like I actually do eat raw eggs, but just one. Yeah, it's like, just think about that for a second. And like, a lot of the times when you pause, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And another thing is to report stuff on social media. It's like, it takes 2 seconds. Platforms that are imperfect and like usually bringing our desires to and making them reality, but they do have a good reporting system. So it's like, if you see something that's off, you think is misinformation or dangerous information that you need even checked, you can just report it. It takes 2 seconds. If everyone did that, internet would be much cleaner. And then if you do those 2, another thing for you to do is to consider putting out a video and trying to populate this area of internet or informational war zone that you kind of care about with something that you believe in and you have something to back it up.
It's really hard to do, but I try to find like good sources of information, because if it comes from a website that you've never necessarily heard of, it might come from a different source that isn't as trustworthy. So I know on Wikipedia for a really long time it said that I resuscitated a dying duck. That never actually happened, but I think to this day it's in my page, because you can
But
put
was there
whatever you
anything
want.
that was remotely close to this, or is just completely?
I mean, I like birds, but not that much.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So, okay, now we know what we can do. We can,
Yeah.
What about large companies? What can major companies do?
Like platforms or
Yeah.
just big business?
Platforms right now, what can they do to combat misinformation?
Okay, so
This is a tough conversation.
During COVID, we have been working with the UN to tackle vaccine hesitancy around the world, and we saw a lot of misinformation around vaccines, just ridiculous stuff. And platforms came up with a solution, and it was disclaimers.
Yes.
Which is good beginning of the conversation, but it's not the real solution. It's like if someone is deeply against something, for example, COVID vaccines, and then he or she sees a video, and then it says this is not backed up. I can't remember the language. Like, bottom line is learn more about COVID-19.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I hate vaccines. This whole stuff. It's a hoax. It's all China. And then they're like,
Is that your American accent, by the way?
I don't know.
That was good. That was good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really know how to do accents. So I was just trying to channel my inner
American.
vaccine
It's cool.
hesitant
Yeah.
person. Not all Americans. Americans are well vaccinated. And then they see learn more about COVID. They're not going to be like, let me just learn more. Let me see. Oh, I was so wrong. I can't believe like this just doesn't happen in real life.
So do you think they should just start pulling stuff down that's misinformation, or make people source it better? What can they do?
So look, taking stuff down is always an option. I think blocking people can be dangerous because people will go elsewhere. So we could see, for example, that's why, according to Spotify, why they didn't block Joe Rogan, who's, by the way, I realize he's here in Austin somewhere, was because he would take his audience elsewhere to a platform that is less responsible, would give him more money, and that hatred will just grow there, and that misinformation will grow there. So blocking is not an option. I think education is, like, it sounds really like wishy-washy, like education is the solution to this. But
you're at the EDU conference, you realize. We all are down with the education.
This is why I'm saying, like, I don't want to state an obvious thing, but it's honestly, like, to me, I think if platforms just do more of hosting and promoting content that is good and verified and kind of accurate, I think that would help, because I think people who spread misinformation, if we take like our work, doctors, COVID vaccines, they usually go, vaccines cause blah blah. Like, I had a vaccine yesterday and now like I don't have an arm anymore, so it was probably the vaccine. Whereas the way that people who know things about vaccines, who have developed them and who have administered them talk, they say, well, if you look at the research studies, there is a clear correlation between the vaccines and the recovery from COVID-19, and They're much more nuanced. And people who spread misinformation, they don't care. They're just there for the views. So they do social media better because they're so good at, like, bold statements, scary statements, like
feeding the fire,
aggression, energy. And then people who are against them, right, who are for, I don't want to say truth, but like verified information because it's their field and they want to help, they're much more careful. And it's like, and it makes sense because they're scientists and doctors. It's usually people who know something deeply aren't all that aggressive about, like, delivering it, and they understand how much they still don't know, and they're careful. They know what's true, but they're always, like, on balance of probabilities. Whereas people who don't care and are just there for the views, they will just spit out everything they have.
Do you think if we took away their little blue check marks? Not we, but could a company take away their verification if they are spreading misinformation? I feel like that might be a way to...
They do it. It actually happened to a friend of mine. Instagram took his verification. Look, verification badge is a funny thing. It's such it's such a sought after thing. It doesn't really change all that much. I guess I guess it would help. It would help, but it's not enough. I think what is enough is for platforms to do better with their algorithm and figuring out what's being reported because it's false, and then what's being reported because it's a cyber attack. Because, you know, my account gets a lot of bots that are reporting stuff, and then it gets taken down because it's like algorithm sees that 10,000 people reported this video as false, and it's all bots, but it still doesn't understand it. And by the time I reinstate it with the appeal, the video is dead. So it's like the platforms have to, like, kind of like, you know, TikTok had an initiative called Fact Check Your Feed, and they invited some of the education creators and journalists to like give people tips about how to fact check the stuff that you're looking at. And it was really successful because like the content was good. It wasn't like kind of one of those slideshows of like, these are 27 ways to, you know, no one's going to watch that. But if you invite creators, give them a certain brief, and then put that content on your homepage, I think it will change our culture. And then, you know, Gen Z is the best generation at identifying fake news and telling the fake news from the real news, the best generation out of all of them, because they have this level of media literacy that is, I think, much better than the older generations.
We're all disagreeing with you because I think everybody in here is Gen X, but that's cool.
I'm a millennial. Is that Gen X?
No, Gen X
Oh,
is
I'm sorry.
like, I think the
Oh, Gen X is yeah,
older.
Right,
Older.
Okay, cool.
Right below the boomers.
No, but you guys are cool.
So what do you think about when Twitter does those big, they'll cleanse all the bots at some point and just like take away all the followers that are bots? I haven't seen that happening in a while.
No, that happens. That still happens.
They're still doing that?
I mean, for creators, it's like you lose followers and you get kind of upset. But at the same time,
I lost a lot of followers.
Yeah, exactly. So you look at that and you're like, oh, damn.
But I want the real people following me. I don't want bots. That's terrible.
Exactly. You don't want to have bots anyways. I mean, I think, you know, that's a standard procedure. That's also because they're all now publicly traded companies, aside from TikTok. That's just, you have to show to your shareholders how many users you actually have. If you say there is, you know, I don't know, million active users a month, and then half of them are bots, like that's, I'm pretty sure that's also breaking a bunch of, what's the American FD financial conduct or FCA something rules.
FDIC?
a body that deals with like stock market and like disclosure and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, I wouldn't praise them too much for cleaning up the bots. Like that's like housekeeping.
I thought they were doing it to be good. Or, well, too frequently content that goes viral is extreme and wrong. How can content creators like you produce content that goes viral without being over the line, without feeding to the extreme?
I think mine is over the line in its delivery, not in the information. So when, for example, I wanted to make a video about cinemas, okay? Like so I'm really fascinated with like different business models. So I was looking at cinema, and it's crazy that, for example, did you know that 60% of their profits come from food?
Yep.
Not from tickets. I mean, you're in this industry, so you do, but most people don't know. And it's like, I was like, I wonder what other things are there about cinema. So I called up the cinemas, emailed cinemas in the UK, and then no one wanted to host me because I wanted to go there and like kind of investigate. And then I remember that my friend in Ukraine actually owns a chain of cinemas. So I called him. That was before the full-scale war. I mean, now I don't even know what happened to those locations, but I called him and he was like, yeah, sure, like you can fly in and like let's make a video. So
nice.
It's like that, and the video is 1 minute. So I flew to Ukraine for the purpose of shooting that video that is 1 minute long. I mean, I did other things, but that was the primary reason. So it's like, I think I get quite extreme, like I think that is pretty extreme in my delivery of information, but the information itself is not extreme.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's the key for creators who are educational. Just think about the way you deliver stuff, and just think like, okay, how can I make it more different? You know, I really like there is a saying, it goes, different is better than better.
Different is better than better.
Yeah, so it's like, just think about like, okay, so cinema, for example, everyone would do it with a green screen and show some pictures and say 1, 2, 3, but like instead I did this. So it's like, sometimes you won't get rewarded with views, sometimes you will, but it just makes the process a little bit more interesting.
Well, hopefully we can get you lots of views for visiting us here today at the South by Southwest studio. So thank you for coming by, and it's been an interesting conversation that I want to keep talking to you about after the cameras go off, because it's very cool what you're doing.
Amazing.
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Max. Please stay tuned for more from the South by Southwest studio. You can see the complete interview schedule at southbysouthwestedu.com/studio. And you can find all of our studio interviews on the South by Southwest EDU app, available on Android TV, Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire.